The night was cold, the ground was hard, and the stars above looked like cruel eyes watching her. The alien girl sat in chains, her body weak, her spirit broken, her thin arms wrapped around herself for warmth. She had been left there for many days, punished for something she did not do. The people called her a curse. They threw stones at her. They spat at her. They shouted words full of hate. Her body carried the marks of pain, bruises on her skin, cuts that never healed, her lips dry with thirst. But even worse than the pain was the silence of the world. No one came. No one cared. No one dared to stand near her. Every night she whispered into the darkness, hoping someone, anyone, would hear. Her voice was soft, weak, almost broken. Please, I do not want to die like this. But the walls of the prison gave no answer. The chains gave no answer. The world gave no answer. Only the cold wind carried her cries away, as if the universe itself had turned its face. The villagers walked past her prison every day. They saw her lying there in the dirt. Some threw more stones just to laugh at her pain. Others looked away, pretending she was not even there. Children asked their parents why she was chained, and the parents whispered, "She is dangerous, she is cursed. Do not look at her." And so even the young learned to hate her, to fear her, to believe she deserved this punishment. The girl's eyes were once full of light, but now they were heavy, tired, almost empty. Her tears had dried long ago now. Only dust and blood stained her cheeks. Her stomach growled in hunger, her throat burned for water. She thought many times that it would be better if she just closed her eyes and never opened them again. But there was one thing that kept her alive. One small thing, hope that somewhere out there, in this vast, cruel world, someone would see her not as a curse but as a life. Someone who would look at her not with hate but with mercy. She prayed for that someone, though she no longer believed anyone would come. One night, the moon rose, high, covering the ground in pale silver light. The girl shivered, her body shaking, her chains heavy against her bones. She looked at the stars and whispered, "If anyone can hear me, please. I do not want to die alone." Her voice cracked like broken glass, fading into the night. Then she heard it, footsteps, slow, steady, and different from the usual cruel march of the guards. Her heart stopped for a moment. Fear rushed through her body. Was it another villager, coming to throw stones? Was it someone coming to laugh at her pain? The footsteps grew closer, echoing softly against the stone walls. The girl curled tighter into herself, trying to hide her face, her body trembling. She could not take more pain. She could not take more cruelty. But then, the footsteps stopped. Right in front of her, a shadow fell across her chains, tall, strong, yet calm. The girl dared to look up. Her eyes met something she had not seen in so long. Eyes that did not burn with hate. Eyes that did not look away in disgust. They were human eyes, but not like the others. These eyes carried something else. Pity, kindness, maybe even sorrow. The human stood there, silent, just watching her for a moment. The girl felt her heart beat faster, unsure if this was real or just another cruel dream. No one had ever stopped to look at her with such eyes. No one had ever dared to stand this close. Her dry lips opened, and in a voice that barely held life, she whispered, "Why? Why are you here?" The human did not answer right away. Instead, he knelt down, lowering himself to her level. He looked at the broken chains, the bruises on her skin, the pain in her eyes, and his own heart ached. The silence stretched, heavy, full of meaning. Finally he spoke, his voice soft but firm. Because no one else would. The word struck her like lightning. She stared at him, not sure if she could believe it, not sure if she even wanted to believe it. But in that moment, in that dark night, hope flickered again inside her chest. A fragile spark, but a spark that refused to die. She did not know who this human was. She did not know what he wanted, but she knew one thing. For the first time in her endless suffering, she was not alone, and that changed everything. The villagers had always warned each other. They said the alien girl was cursed. They said whoever touched her would suffer the same fate, her chains. were not only iron, they were made of fear and lies, and because of those lies no one dared to step close. But this human, this stranger, was different. He had arrived in the village only a few days ago. Traveling from faraway lands, he had heard the whispers, the warnings, the cruel stories told about the prisoner. Yet when he passed the prison walls and heard the faint cries of the chained girl, his heart could not turn away. The villagers shouted at him when he walked near the prison gates, "Do not go there!" They cried, "She is dangerous." Some even threw stones near his feet to make him stop, but his steps did not slow. His eyes stayed fixed on the shadow curled against the cold wall. The villagers muttered among themselves, "He is a fool." One said, "He will die like the rest." Another whispered. Yet the human kept walking. The girl watched him with wide, fearful eyes. Her heart pounded. She had seen many humans before, but never one who looked at her with kindness. She pressed, her back against the stone wall, her chains rattling as she tried to pull away. She whispered, almost like a plea, "Go back. They will kill you too. Don't come near me." But the human only stopped a few steps away. His face was calm, yet his eyes burned with something powerful, pity and determination. He looked at her thin body, her bruises, the blood on her wrists where the chains cut deep. He looked at her hollow cheeks, her shaking form, her eyes full of fear and hopelessness. And he felt anger rise inside him. Anger not at her, but at those who had done this to her. He took a deep breath, and his voice was steady when he spoke. "I am not afraid of you," he said. "I am afraid of what they have become." The girl stared at him, her lips parting in disbelief. No one had ever said such words to her. Her voice shook when she whispered, "Why? Why would you help me?" The human knelt down slowly, lowering himself so he did not tower over her like the others had. He reached out a hand but stopped just short of her chains. His fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of the choice he was making. "I do not know you," he admitted softly, "but I see the truth in your eyes. You are not what they say you are." The girl shook her head, her hair falling into her face. Tears formed at the edges of her eyes, though she had long thought she could never cry again. "No," she whispered. "If you help me, they will hate you too. They will turn on you. Leave me. Please." Her voice broke, the sound full of pain and warning. She had lost so much already. She could not bear to see another life destroyed because of her. But the human only leaned closer, his voice firm yet gentle. "They already hate me," he said. "I am a stranger here, they owe me nothing and I owe them nothing. But I cannot walk away while you suffer." The words fell heavy in the night, and for the first time in so long, the girl felt something she thought was lost: trust. It was small, fragile, and trembling like a candle in the wind. But it was there. Her lips parted again, but no words came. Only silence as her tears fell slowly to the dirt. The human finally reached out, and his hand touched the cold iron of the chains. The metal was sharp, biting into his skin. His fingers bled as he tried to pull. The girl gasped, panic rising. "Stop. If they see you, they will." But his eyes met hers again, and his voice cut through her fear. "Then let them see," he said. "Let them see that one human refused to be like them." The chains groaned as he pulled with all his strength. His muscles strained. His breath came heavy, the iron dug into his flesh. The villagers had gathered now, watching from a distance, murmuring in shock and disbelief. Some shouted, "Leave her! She is cursed." Others threw stones, one hitting his back, another grazing his head. But the human did not stop. He stood firm against their hatred. Every pull of the chain was a battle. Every strike against him was ignored. The girl stared at him, her tears falling faster now. No one had ever fought for her. No one had ever stood between her and the cruelty of the world. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Why? Why risk everything for me?" The human looked at her, sweat dripping down his brow, his blood staining the iron, and with a voice that shook the silence, he said, "Because you are alive, and no one deserves to die alone in chains. The crowd fell quiet, his words striking, even those who hated her. But their silence did not mean safety. Their eyes still burned with anger. The girl knew this was only the beginning. Her fate was tied to this human now, and danger waited at every corner, yet in that moment, for the first time in her broken life, she felt something powerful. She felt hope. The night air was heavy, the silence of the crowd pressing down like a storm waiting to break. The human's hands bled as he pulled at the chains, his breath rough, his muscles trembling. The villagers stood around, their faces twisted with fear and anger, their voices rising in warning. "Stop, stranger," one shouted. "She will destroy you if you set her free." Another hissed, "The chains are cursed, no man can break them." But the human did not listen. The alien girl sat frozen, her heart racing, her eyes locked on him. Every pull, every groan of the iron filled her with both hope and terror. She whispered, her voice shaking, "Please, leave me. You do not understand. They will kill you for this." Her chains rattled as she tried to shrink back, but her body was too weak, her spirit too tired. Still, her voice carried a desperate warning. "You cannot save me." The human looked at her, sweat dripping down his face, and he spoke through gritted teeth. "Then I will die trying." His words were sharp, cutting through the noise of the crowd. The villagers gasped, their whispers turning to roars of anger. Stones flew through the air, striking his shoulders, bouncing against the prison walls. But the human shielded her with his own body. Standing between her and the storm of hate, the girl's chest ached, her eyes wide with disbelief. Never had anyone taken her pain as their own. Never had anyone dared to bleed for her. Her lips trembled, and though she wanted to tell him to stop, a small voice inside whispered something else. What if he can do it? What if I could be free? The chains had held her for years, their weight crushing her spirit, their cold bite a reminder of her endless punishment. No one had ever touched them except to tighten them, to remind her she was a prisoner, a curse, a thing to be hated. Now here was a human, tearing at them with bare hands, his blood mixing with the rust. Each sound of bending metal was like thunder in the girl's ears. Her heart pounded faster. Torn between fear and hope, the villagers screamed louder, "Stop him! Do not let the curse spread." A few brave men stepped closer, holding sticks and stones ready to strike. But the human turned his head, his eyes blazing with defiance. "If you touch her," he growled, "you will have to go through me first." His voice carried such force that even the bravest stepped back. The crowd hesitated, their hate clashing with their fear. They had seen many things, but never this. Never a human standing against his own kind for her. The moment stretched long, the only sound the groaning of the chains under his relentless pull. Finally, with a sharp crack, the first link snapped. The sound echoed through the night like a scream of freedom. The girl gasped, her breath catching in her throat, her eyes wide in disbelief. For the first time, one of her arms was free, the iron falling to the ground with a heavy thud. Her hand trembled as she lifted it, her skin raw and bleeding. She looked at it as if it belonged to someone else. Her voice broke into a whisper. I can move." Tears spilled down her cheeks, tears she thought she could never shed again. The villagers cried out in panic, their voices trembling with fear. "It is starting. The curse is free. Stop him before it is too late." But the human ignored them. His hands going to the second chain, the metal cut deeper into his flesh. His body shook from exhaustion, but his will was unbroken. He pulled and pulled again, his teeth clenched, his face twisted in pain. The girl reached out with her freed hand, touching his arm lightly. Her voice shook as she whispered, "You will die if you keep going. Please." He looked at her, his eyes fierce yet soft. "I will not stop," he said. "Not until you are free." Her heart burned at his words, a warmth she had not felt in years spreading through her chest. The sound of metal groaning filled the air again, louder, harsher, until the second chain snapped. The girl cried out, a sob escaping her lips, her other arm falling free. She covered her face with her trembling hands, her body shaking with emotion. Freedom, even if only a small taste, was more than she had ever dreamed of. The villagers panicked. Some fled into the night. Others screamed curses. But none dared to move closer. None dared to face the human who stood tall before them. He reached for the last chain, the one binding her legs. The girl shook her head, fear in her eyes. "No," she whispered. "If you do this, they will never forgive you." But the human's reply came without hesitation. "Then let them hate me," he said. "I will not leave you in chains." The final battle began, his muscles straining, his body weakening, but his spirit refusing to break. The crowd watched in silence now, the air thick with fear and awe. Every pull of the chain felt like it carried the weight of the universe. And then, at last, with a deafening snap, the final chain broke. The girl collapsed forward, her body no longer held by the iron. The human caught her before she hit the ground, his arms steady despite his wounds. Her voice was a broken whisper, trembling with disbelief. I am free." The human looked at her, his face pale, his body shaking, and he answered softly, "Yes, you are free." The villagers could not speak, their voices stolen by shock. The night was filled only with the sound of broken chains lying in the dirt, and the beginning of something far greater than they could ever imagine. The chains lay broken on the ground, cold iron glinting in the pale moonlight. The alien girl leaned against the human's chest, her body weak, her legs trembling from years of captivity. She could hardly believe it. The weight that had held her soul crushed for so long was gone. Her lips trembled as she whispered again, almost afraid it was only a dream. I am free." But freedom came with danger. The crowd that had once shouted so loud now stood silent, their faces pale, their eyes wide. Some clutched stones in their hands, others sticks, but none dared to step closer. Fear filled their hearts, not only of the girl but of the human who had defied them all. That silence broke in a single cry, shrill and furious. "She must not leave. Stop them." The words spread like fire. The villagers roared, their fear turning to rage. They began to surge forward, shouting, throwing stones, their feet pounding the dirt. The human stood tall, his arms tightening around the girl, his body becoming her shield. The first stone struck his shoulder, another grazed his cheek, blood running down. But he did not let go. He held her as if letting her fall would mean losing everything. The girl's eyes filled with terror. She had dreamed of freedom, but not like this, not surrounded by hate. Her weak voice trembled. "They will kill you, and then they will kill me too." But the human only looked at her, his jaw set, his eyes burning with fire. "Then we will face them together," he said. "But I will not give you back to their cruelty." The villagers pressed closer, the sound of their anger filling the night. The human glanced around, searching desperately. The prison gates stood open behind the crowd, no escape there. But to the left, between two broken walls, he saw a narrow path leading into the dark forest beyond. His heart pounded, his mind racing. He shifted the girl in his arms, lifting her fully despite the pain in his body. "Hold on," he whispered. "We are leaving." She clung to him weakly, her arms trembling as they wrapped around his neck. Her head rested against his chest, listening to the thunder of his heartbeat. She wanted to tell him to stop, to leave her behind. But no words came. For the first time, someone was carrying her not toward pain, but toward life. The human ran, his feet pounding against the dirt. The villagers shouted and gave chase, stones flying through the air. The forest loomed ahead, dark and thick, branches twisting like claws. But to him it was hope, a chance to disappear into the night. The girl lifted her head weakly, her voice trembling. "You cannot outrun them all." Her words were soft but filled with fear. The human's breath came heavy, but his reply was firm. "Then I will fight them if I must." Behind them the crowd grew louder. Some carried torches, their flames lighting the night like angry stars. The human's legs burned with exhaustion, every step a battle. Yet he did not slow. He would not stop. The forest closed around them, shadows swallowing them whole. Branches scratched at his arms. Roots caught at his feet. But still he pressed on. The girl looked over his shoulder, seeing the torchlight chasing through the trees. Her heart ached, fear gripping her. But there was something else too, something she had not felt in so long. A fragile spark of safety, because he was there. The villagers slowed as the forest grew deeper. Their shouts echoed, their anger fierce. But the shadows made them hesitate. Some believed the forest was haunted. Others feared wild beasts. Their voices faded behind, though their hate still burned in the distance. The human finally stumbled into a clearing, his chest heaving, his arms trembling from carrying her so far. He set the girl gently against a fallen tree, kneeling beside her. Sweat dripped down his face, blood stained his clothes, but his eyes were still strong. He looked at her and whispered, "You are safe now, at least for tonight." The girl stared at him, her eyes wide with emotion. No one had ever said those words to her. No one had ever fought so hard for her life. Her lips trembled, and tears rolled down her cheeks. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do this for me when everyone else turned away?" The human's face softened, his voice low but steady. "Because no one deserves to be left to die in chains," he said. "Not you, not anyone." The girl lowered her gaze, her heart pounding. She had always believed kindness was a lie. Hope was a cruel trick. But here, bleeding and broken, was proof that kindness was real. Her chains were gone, her prison behind her, and before her stood a human who refused to abandon her. The night grew quiet, the forest wrapping around them like a shield. But danger was not gone. The villagers would not forget. Their anger would only grow, their hunt would continue. The girl knew this, and fear lingered in her chest. Yet when she looked at the human beside her, she felt something stronger than fear. She felt the beginning of trust. The human sat close, his eyes scanning the shadows. He knew the danger was not over. He knew the path ahead was dark and full of trials, but as he looked at the girl, fragile yet alive, he felt no regret. He had saved her, and he would protect her still. The escape was only the first step. The true test was yet to come. The forest was thick and silent, the trees standing like watchful guards in the night. The human carried the alien girl deeper into the shadows, his body heavy with exhaustion, his arms trembling with the weight of her and his own wounds. Every branch cracked beneath his boots, every step felt slower than the last. But he did not stop. Behind them, the torches of the villagers faded, their angry voices swallowed by the endless dark. At last, when his strength could carry him no further, he stumbled upon a ruined shelter hidden among the trees. It was an old cabin, its roof half broken, its walls leaning with age. But it was a place to hide. The human pushed the broken door open with his shoulder and stepped inside. The air was damp, dust hanging in the moonlight that slipped through the cracks. Still, it was safer than the open ground. He laid the girl gently on a pile of dry leaves in the corner, his chest heaving, his hands shaking. The alien girl looked around with wide, tired eyes. She touched the floor beneath her, rough and dirty. Yet to her it felt like freedom compared to the cold stone of the prison. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "No chains. No walls." Her voice trembled as if she feared the dream would end if she spoke too loud. The human crouched beside her, pulling a small flask from his pack. He held it to her lips, his voice low and careful. "Drink slowly." The girl hesitated, suspicion flickering in her eyes. No one had ever given her kindness without cruelty hidden behind it. But her thirst burned too strong, and finally she obeyed. The water touched her lips, and she drank greedily, her throat crying for more. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she swallowed, for even water felt like a gift she did not deserve. When she finished, he handed her a small piece of bread, rough and stale but enough to ease the hunger in her hollow stomach. She clutched it with shaking hands, staring at him with disbelief. Her lips parted, and her voice was barely more than a whisper. Why? Why are you helping me? The human looked at her, his face calm though his body ached. He thought for a moment before speaking, his words slow, careful. Because no one else would, he said. Because I could not walk away while you were left to die. His voice was quiet, but his eyes carried fire. The girl lowered her gaze, her hands tightening around the bread. She could not understand it. Not after years of being hated, beaten, starved. Her heart whispered to her that this was a trick, that soon he would hurt her like the others. But another voice inside, faint and trembling, told her something else. That maybe, just maybe, he meant every word. Her breath shook as she asked again, her voice filled with fear and wonder. But why me? I am not human. I am nothing. The human shook his head firmly, his voice steady. You are not nothing, he said. You are alive, and that is enough. The words hit her heart like lightning. No one had ever told her she was worth even that much. Her tears fell harder, silent but endless, her shoulders shaking as she tried to cover her face. The human did not touch her, did not force her to stop crying. He simply sat near, his presence strong and steady. And in that silence, she cried not just from pain but from the fragile seed of hope taking root inside her. The night grew colder, the wind slipping through the cracks of the cabin. The human gathered broken wood from the floor, his hands rough but steady. He struck flint until sparks leapt, a small fire glowing in the corner. The warmth spread slowly, chasing away the damp chill. The girl stretched her hands toward it, her thin fingers trembling as they felt the heat. She had almost forgotten what warmth felt like. The human watched her, his face unreadable. He saw the scars on her skin, the way her body curled as if she expected another blow. He wondered what cruelty she had endured, what story had chained her so long. But he did not ask. Not yet. Instead, he gave her silence, a gift she had never been given. Hours passed. The forest outside whispering with night sounds. The girl's eyes grew heavy, her body exhausted from years of suffering and the sudden weight of freedom. She looked at him one last time before sleep, her voice soft, fragile. They will come for us, won't they? The human nodded slowly, his voice low. Yes, but we will be ready. Her eyes closed, her body finally surrendering to rest. For the first time in years, her dreams were not chains or stones or voices of hate. Her dreams were of a fire's warmth, of water on her lips and of a human who had not turned away. The man sat awake, his back against the broken wall, his eyes watching the flames. His body hurt, his wounds stung, but he felt no regret. He knew the villagers would not forgive. He knew danger would come again. But he also knew this, that he had saved a life, and that life now lay sleeping in the corner, free of chains. And for him, that was enough. The small fire flickered inside the ruined cabin, its glow painting the walls with trembling shadows. The alien girl slept for hours, her body at last given rest after endless nights of pain. The human stayed awake, his back against the broken wall, his eyes watching the flames as the forest whispered outside. Every crack of a branch made him tense. Every cry of a bird in the night made his hand tighten on the stick he had sharpened into a weapon. He knew the villagers would not stop. He knew they would come again. But for now the forest kept them hidden. At last the girl stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She blinked at the firelight, confused, as though she had forgotten where she was. Then she saw the human sitting close, his face lined with exhaustion but his eyes still strong. Her chest tightened, remembering it was not a dream. She was free. She was alive. She sat up slowly, her body weak, her voice rough. You stayed awake for me, she whispered. The human nodded, his voice calm. I had to. Her lips trembled, her eyes dropping to the ground. No one has ever done that before. For a long silence, the crackling fire was the only sound between them. But the girl's heart was heavy, and at last she spoke, her voice trembling. You do not know the truth. You do not know why they hate me." The human leaned closer, his eyes steady. "Then tell me." Her hands clenched in her lap, fear and pain twisting inside her. "They say I am cursed," she whispered. "They say I brought death to their people." Her words spilled like broken glass, sharp and painful. "Years ago, sickness came to the village. Many died. They said it was my fault. They said my kind carried it." Her voice cracked, her shoulders shaking. "But I was only a child. I had nothing to do with it. Still, they chained me. They beat me. They left me to die." Tears filled her eyes, hot and endless. "They told their children to throw stones at me. They told each other that if I lived, their world would suffer more." Her voice dropped into a whisper. "For so long, I began to believe them. I began to think maybe I was cursed, maybe I deserved it." The human's jaw tightened, anger burning in his chest. He saw her scars, her pain, the years of cruelty etched into every word, and his voice came low but fierce. "No, you are not cursed. They lied because they needed someone to blame." He leaned closer, his eyes locking on hers. "They feared the sickness, they feared what they did not understand, and they chose you, because you were different." The girl stared at him, her breath caught. His words struck deep, tearing through the chains that still lingered inside her heart. "But," she whispered, "why believe me? Why trust me when everyone else calls me a monster?" The human shook his head, his voice steady. "Because I see you, not their lies. Your eyes carry truth. Your pain carries innocence. I trust what I see, not what they scream." Her tears spilled harder, and she covered her face with her hands. No one had ever defended her. No one had ever believed her. And now this human sat across from her, bleeding and broken, yet still giving her the gift of trust. Her voice broke into a sob. "I do not deserve this. I do not deserve your kindness." But the human answered firmly, "Yes, you do. Everyone deserves mercy. Everyone deserves a chance." The fire crackled louder as silence fell between them, but it was not the silence of fear or hate. It was the silence of understanding. For the first time, the girl felt her story had been heard. For the first time, her truth was not met with stones but with belief. Outside, the wind howled, carrying with it faint voices. The human tensed, his hand tightening on his stick. He moved to the broken door, peering into the darkness far away. Torchlight flickered through the trees, faint but growing. The villagers were searching, their anger not fading but burning hotter. The girl saw. The light, too, her body trembling. "They are coming," she whispered, fear flooding her chest. The human nodded, his voice firm. "Yes. But this time you are not alone." She looked at him, her heart pounding. All her life she had been alone. Her cries ignored, her pain mocked. But now, for the first time, someone stood with her against the world, her lips parted, her voice soft, yet full of new strength. "Then, I will not run from the truth anymore." The human turned back to her, his eyes steady. "Good," he said, "because the truth is stronger than their lies, and together we will survive." The fire burned low. The night pressed close. The girl's past had been revealed. Her pain laid bare, but she was no longer crushed beneath it. The human's belief had given her something stronger than chains. Stronger than fear, he had given her the strength to believe in herself again. But the danger was real. The torches were drawing nearer, and in the heart of the forest, the night whispered of the final test yet to come. The night was no longer quiet. The forest shook with the sound of voices, the glow of torches moving closer. The villagers had not given up. Their fear had turned into rage, and they came as one, carrying stones, sticks, and sharpened blades. Their shouts echoed through the trees, calling for blood, calling for the girl's death. Inside the ruined cabin, the alien girl clutched her knees, her body trembling. She heard the voices, the hate that had followed her all her life, and her heart sank. "They will kill us," she whispered, her eyes wide with terror. The human stood near the broken door, his shoulders straight, his jaw set. "No," he said, firmly, "they will not take you," She shook her head, her voice breaking. You do not understand. They are too many. They will not stop until I am gone. Her tears fell, her voice rising into despair. You should leave me. Save yourself before it is too late. But the human turned to her, his eyes blazing. I will not leave you, he said, each word steady as stone. You were left alone once, chained and forgotten, and I will never let that happen again. The girl's chest tightened, her breath catching. She wanted to believe him, wanted to hold on to his words, but fear gripped her like iron. Outside, the torches grew brighter, shadows of the villagers stretching. Across the trees, their voices rose in one furious cry. Bring out the cursed one! The human stepped into the doorway, his body blocking the entrance. The villagers stopped at the clearing, their weapons raised, their faces twisted with hate. One man pointed, shouting, Stranger, step aside, she is cursed. If you stand with her, you are cursed too. The human's voice cut through their noise like a blade. Cursed? He shouted. Look at her. She is no monster. She is no curse. She is a life you tried to destroy. The villagers muttered, anger clashing with doubt, but their leader stepped forward, his eyes hard. She killed our families, he growled. She brought sickness. Her kind cannot be trusted. The girl cried out, her voice breaking. No. I never hurt anyone. I was only a child. You chained me because you needed someone to blame. Her words carried across the clearing, her pain raw and real. But many turned away, unwilling to listen, unwilling to believe. The human raised his, voice fierce and unshaken. You feared what you could not understand, so you made her a prisoner. But your fear is the true curse. He stepped forward, his body bleeding, his hands raw, yet his spirit unbroken. If you want to take her, you will have to go through me. The villagers roared in anger, their leader lifting his weapon high. Then you will die with her, he shouted. They surged forward, a tide of hate rushing toward the cabin. The girl screamed, her hands reaching out. No, please. But before the first blow could fall, something unexpected happened. One voice rose from the crowd, trembling but clear. Stop. A woman stepped forward, her face pale, her eyes full of shame. I lost my child in the sickness, and I blamed her. But she was only a child too. The crowd faltered, their steps slowing, their eyes turning uncertain. Another villager lowered his torch, his voice heavy. We let hate blind us. We wanted someone to carry our pain, so we made her suffer. The leader snarled, trying to raise his weapon again, but more voices rose. She is not the curse, one said. She is just a girl, another whispered. The crowd's anger cracked, breaking apart under the weight of doubt and guilt. The human stood tall, his voice carrying strength and fire. She does not need your forgiveness. She does not need your pity. She only needs to live, free of your chains. His words struck like thunder, echoing in the hearts of those who listened. The leader, furious, charged forward, his blade raised to strike. The human braced himself, ready to give his life. But, before the blade could fall, the alien girl stepped forward, her body weak but her voice strong. Enough, she cried. Her eyes shone with tears, but her spirit burned with fire. You chained me, you starved me, you called me a curse, but I am still here. I am still alive. The villagers froze, the fire in her voice stopping them cold. Her words cut deeper than any weapon, her truth undeniable. She lifted her chin, her body trembling but unbroken. You cannot kill me with chains. You cannot kill me with stones. Because I am more than your fear. Silence fell over the clearing, the torches flickering weakly. The leader dropped his weapon, his face twisted with defeat. One by one, the villagers lowered their stones, their voices quiet. Shame filled their hearts. Though it could never erase what they had done, the human stepped to her side, his hand steady on her shoulder. Together they stood, broken yet unbowed, a human and an alien girl. The night air was heavy, but in that silence something shifted. For the first time, she was no longer seen as a prisoner, but as someone who had survived. The villagers turned away slowly, their torches fading back into the forest. The clearing was quiet again. The fire of hate finally dimmed. The girl leaned against the human, her body weak but her spirit stronger than ever. Her voice trembled, but her words carried truth. You saved me. But more than that, you showed me humanity. The human looked at her, his voice soft. No. You saved yourself. I only gave you the chance. And under the pale light of the moon, among the broken chains of the past, the girl's new life truly began.